Our farm got burned to the ground by HOA enforcers, and the reason? A zoning complaint. Our neighbor was grinning like she'd just stopped a national threat, but what she didn't know was that the barn they torched was a canine training facility, and every dog inside was trained to take down intruders. Let me start from the beginning. Before we dive in, let me know where you're listening from today. It wasn't the alarms that woke me up. It wasn't the smoke. It was Champ scratching, howling, slamming his body against Mikey's bedroom door like he was trying to tear the whole thing down. First thing I thought was Coyote. Second thing was something way worse. I stumbled into the hall, blinking hard, and slammed into Ashley. She was coughing already, pulling a hoodie over her nightgown, wide-eyed. Mikey. It's the barn. It's the barn, Mikey. Move. Smoke punched me in the face the second she said it, thick, greasy, hot enough to sting your eyes before you even knew you were awake. I didn't grab my boots, didn't grab my wallet, didn't grab anything but the crowbar I kept by the door for emergencies. Funny how you imagine burglars, not bonfires. The second the door slammed open, I knew it was bad. The night sky wasn't black anymore, it was bleeding orange. Our barn, the one we built beam by beam, the one that held everything, was already half a skeleton wrapped in flames. And in front of it, three shapes standing behind the far fence, hands in pockets, watching. I took 2 steps forward, barefoot, before instinct kicked in and my brain screamed, Mikey. Champ was still barking like mad somewhere inside. The barn wasn't just wood and tools, it was the training center, the puppies, the seniors, the search and rescue course Mikey built last summer with Champ leading the drills. My feet hit gravel, I felt every stone cut into my soles, but it didn't slow me. Mikey, get Champ out of there. No answer, just a burst of movement. Mikey flying out of the barn side door, arms shielding his face, and Champ had Mikey's hoodie clamped in his jaws, hauling him sideways like a suitcase, saving him. Ashley crashed into me from behind, gasping for breath. Water tank's empty. Someone drained it. My head snapped toward the shed where the hoses hooked up. The pipes cut clean. Sabotaged. And across the pasture, the 3 figures still stood there, lit from below by the fire, shadows warping across the grass. One of them lifted a clipboard and started writing something down, like he was tallying groceries. I swear one of them smiled. I skidded to Mikey as he fell, coughing, into the dirt, scooped him up with one arm. Champ circled, barking so hard his whole body shook. Dad, the puppies. There's still some inside. No. Ashley yanked him backward. We can't. It's too far in. Mikey fought against her, and Champ barked louder, but the barn's roof groaned, a sound you never forget once you hear it, and then collapsed inward, throwing sparks high into the night. If anyone else had been in there, they weren't now. We stood there in the dirt, coughing and crying and not moving, because what else do you do when your whole world burns down and 3 strangers across the fence just watch? The heat drove us back step by step, even as Champ tried to surge forward again. Mikey finally dropped to his knees and hugged Champ tight, whispering, I'm sorry, boy. I'm sorry. Ashley sagged against me, silent tears carving clean tracks down her soot-smeared face. And me? I stared at the 3 HOA agents, their features half-lit, half-shadowed, until my vision blurred, and I realized they weren't waiting for firefighters. They weren't documenting damage. They were witnessing a victory. For you, a free like is easy. But for me, it is the greatest support and encouragement. For this video, can you give me 1 like and 1 subscription? Thank you very much. A flash hit the back of my brain like a hammer, a military base, a warehouse on fire, orders to stand down, let it burn. The smell was the same. The helplessness was the same. Only this time, I wasn't taking orders from anyone. Champ whined low in his chest, a sound I'd never heard from him before, not even in storms, not even when he was hurt. It wasn't fear, it was loss. I pulled Mikey closer, ignoring how bad my own hands were shaking. I didn't know what we were up against yet, didn't know who had sent them, didn't even know how bad the damage was going to be. But one thing was already clear as day: this wasn't about rules, it wasn't about zoning, and it sure wasn't over. Because when I finally found out why they needed us gone, the fire was just their first warning shot. And trust me, they should have aimed better. They say when your house is burning, you don't think about the walls, you think about the photos, the shoes by the door, the coffee cup still half full on the counter. When the barn caught fire that night, it wasn't just smoke that hit me, it was the gut punch of every memory we built here, all of it going up like it never mattered. But it did matter. It mattered a lot more than anyone outside our fence would ever understand. You've got to understand, this place wasn't just some fixer-upper, a ranch to us. It was the whole reason I was still standing. And it all started because of one bad idea I had back when I was a little too stubborn and a lot too lost. Retirement didn't suit me. I tried it for about a week. Turns out fishing is not very relaxing when you keep mistaking pond ripples for landmines. And grocery stores? Too many people, too many carts, too much noise. You need a hobby, Ashley told me, arms crossed, eyeing me like I was a stray she regretted taking in. I said I'd think about it. Next thing she knew, I bought 36 acres of weeds, scrap metal, and memories. We called it a ranch because it sounded better than patch of barely contained chaos. The first winter, the roof leaked in 7 different places. The second winter, the truck died halfway down the drive, and I spent 3 hours hiking back uphill in boots so old they talked back. Mikey hated it at first. Cool, Dad. So when do we get Wi-Fi? Before or after the apocalypse? Ashley wasn't much better. I always dreamed of country life, she said, kicking a rock, just didn't realize I'd be starring in a horror movie called Cornfield Regrets. But then Champ happened. Champ changed everything. He wasn't our dog, not technically. He was a canine reject, too sharp, too wild, too good at slipping leashes and scaring adoption agents. But he didn't trust anybody. Didn't eat the first 2 days, didn't even bark. He just sat in the farthest corner of the barn, watching, calculating, waiting. Mikey was the one who cracked him. It wasn't a grand moment, no movie montage with triumphant music. It was Mikey tripping over a bucket, falling flat on his face in the dirt, and laughing so hard that even Champ's guard cracked for half a second. One slow wag of the tail. From then on, Champ was family. No adoption papers needed. And you better believe he acted like it. Champ helped Mikey build obstacle courses out of old tires and busted fence rails. He learned hand signals faster than Mikey could invent them. He could scale a 10-foot wall, sniff out a mouse from half a field away, and steal my sandwich right out of my hand without breaking stride. Champ was trouble. Champ was magic. We didn't plan to build a canine rehab center, it just sort of happened. One dog led to another. A handler buddy of mine from the service called. "Hey, Tim, got another one nobody wants. Mind taking a look?" Another dog showed up, then another. Pretty soon, the barn wasn't a barn, it was a boot camp for misfits and 4-legged warriors who deserved a second shot at life. Of course, Ashley threatened divorce roughly once a month. 30 acres, Tim. 30 dogs, 1 septic tank. You're doing the math wrong. But then she'd sneak them scraps from the kitchen when she thought nobody was looking. Champ figured out her soft spot fast. He could guilt her into triple rations with one sad whimper. Mikey caught her once. "You're the problem, Mom," he said around a mouthful of stolen pie. She nearly threw a dish towel at his head. That ranch wasn't perfect. The gate broke every other week. The driveway turned into a mudslide every spring. And if you didn't shut the pantry door tight, Champ would teach a whole platoon of retrievers how to raid it. But it was ours. More than that, it was the place that taught me how to breathe again. I didn't notice it happening at first. Didn't notice when the panic attacks stopped sneaking upon me at the grocery store. Didn't notice when I started laughing without checking over my shoulder first. Didn't notice when I finally slept through a whole night without waking up to the sound of bombs that weren't there. The ranch saved me. Not in some Hallmark card way, not in some magical sunrise moment, in a hard, bloody-knuckled laugh through the pain way. And Champ was the best part of it. He wasn't just a dog, he was Mikey's brother. He was Ashley's unspoken, secret favorite. He was my second chance, walking around on four legs, reminding me every single day, you don't have to be perfect, you just have to stay. You just have to try. When the barn burned, it wasn't just boards and beams falling. It was the first place Champ learned to trust, the first field Mikey conquered, the first home Ashley decorated with thrift store furniture and second-hand dreams. It was 1,000 late nights, 1,000 mistakes, 1,000 victories nobody but us would ever know about. Gone in one night. That's why we didn't pack up and leave. That's why we didn't bow our heads and take the hit. Because when you fight that hard to build something out of nothing, you don't let cowards tear it down. Not without a fight. Not without making them earn every inch they tried to steal. And they thought they could scare us off with fire? Oh no. They were about to find out what happens when you back a stubborn man into a corner. And next time, it wouldn't be smoke they were running from. There's something special about a knock on the door that feels wrong. It doesn't sound the same. It doesn't wait. It demands. And the second I heard it, heavy, 3 sharp raps like a drill sergeant with a grudge, I knew nothing good was standing on the other side. Champ was already up, bristling in the kitchen doorway, nose pointed straight at the front door. Mike, age 10, knocked over his cereal bowl trying to get up, milk splashing across the table in a lazy, chaotic wave. For you, a free like is easy. But for me, it is the greatest support and encouragement. For this video, can you give me 1 like and 1 subscription? Thank you very much. Sarah grabbed a dish towel, but she didn't move to clean it up. She just watched the door like it might bite. You expecting a delivery? I joked weakly, reaching for the crowbar I kept leaned against the door frame. Only thing we ordered was peace and quiet, Sarah said under her breath. When I yanked the door open, crowbar loose in my hand, the sight that greeted me made my stomach twist. It was Karen Miller, and her 2 polarizing, clipboard-toting henchmen, the holy trinity of HOA doom. Karen had on her serious business face, mouth pressed thin, eyes gleaming like she was about to win a prize at the county fair. She didn't bother with pleasantries, just held out a blinding yellow envelope like it was a golden ticket to my personal ruin. Mr. Thompson, she said, voice syrupy smooth, you are in violation of Section 4B of the Community Preservation Code. You have 30 days to comply with evacuation orders or face legal action. Buddy let out a low, steady growl. I took the envelope just to have a free hand. Sarah folded her arms, glaring so hard I swear one of the Polo twins actually flinched. Mike stepped up beside me, fists balled, breathing hard, like he was daring them to say one more word. Section 4B? I said, pretending to read the envelope. Never heard of it. Is that above or below the section where you mind your own business? Karen's smile tightened. Emergency Redevelopment Ordinance. Your property is slated for community revitalization. Behind her, her 2 henchmen unfurled a giant laminated map, like circus barkers unveiling a new attraction. Red lines cut across the fields, slicing up our ranch like a butcher's chart. A big stamp on our land, pending transfer, Phase 1 acquisition. Mike made a choke noise, like he wanted to spit nails. Sarah's hand found mine, squeezing tight enough to pop knuckles. You can't just erase us, Mike snarled. Karen finally glanced at him, not as a person, but just an obstacle. You're non-compliant tenants now. We own this land. I said, my voice dropping low. Ownership is conditional under emergency code, she replied smoothly. You'll find the legal definitions updated accordingly. Buddy barked once, loud, sharp, commanding. The younger of the 2 henchmen actually jumped. I bit down on a grin. You want to see non-compliant? I said. Keep standing on my porch. Sarah shot me a warning glance, the unspoken please don't get arrested today kind. Karen snapped the map closed. 30 days, Mr. Thompson. Voluntary cooperation is strongly encouraged. Penalties increase with delay. And with that, She turned and marched down the steps like she already owned the place. One of the henchmen accidentally dropped his clipboard, scrambled to pick it up, and trotted after her without a backward glance. I stood frozen, fists tight, watching them leave. Watching them get into their sleek black SUV, no plates, of course, and drive away slow, the gravel spitting under their tires like they were already counting the property lines in their heads. Sarah ripped the envelope open. Inside was a full eviction packet, threats, fines, court orders, already drafted. They didn't expect us to fight. They expected us to fold fast, quiet, forgettable. We fight, right? Mike said, his voice a ragged mix of fear and fury. I turned, looked at him, at Buddy standing tall beside him like a soldier ready to deploy, at Sarah, eyes burning bright even through the exhaustion. I didn't have to think about it. We fight, I said. We fight dirty, Sarah added. Buddy barked once in agreement. Mike grinned, a wild flash of teeth, and somewhere deep in my gut, a darker thought whispered, they started this, but they have no idea how far I'm willing to go to finish it. Because next time they came for us, it wouldn't be with a clipboard, and it wouldn't end with polite paperwork. The next strike would hit a lot closer to the heart. They didn't come back with fire this time. They came back with little knives, invisible ones. Ones you didn't see until you bled. And for a while, it worked. The first shot was the fence. One morning, I found the south line smashed, like a drunk giant stumbled through it. Splintered posts, wire peeled back like a zipper. Buddy stood there, hackles high, tail stiff, nose pointed at the fresh tire ruts gouged into the dirt. I rebuilt it, with Mike handing me nails, and Buddy pacing circles around us like a worried parent. By sunset, the posts were down again. Same tire tracks, same muddy footprints leading nowhere, same sick feeling in my gut. For you, a free like is easy. But for me, it is the greatest support and encouragement. For this video, can you give me 1 like and 1 subscription? Thank you very much. Next was the water. I woke up to the dogs howling, real howls, not the playful morning wake-ups Buddy usually led. The troughs were bone dry. The main tank valve had been ripped clean off, like someone brought bolt cutters just for the occasion. The ground around it was muddy and torn up, heavy boots maybe, mixed with Buddy's paw prints trying to track them. Mike went full beast mode. Buckets, pots, old pans, anything that could hold water, got dragged out to the well. Buddy followed, nose low, whining every time Mike dripped. Dusty had already sloshed about half a bucket of water away when Sarah refilled every container in the kitchen. Even the dog bowls got topped off by hand. It wasn't enough, not even close. By the third day, pink and orange flags dotted the fields like some crazy Easter egg hunt. Everywhere you looked, flags, rows of them, sliced across the fields, across the training course, even across the ruins of the hay barn. Buster hated them. At first, he just barked. Then he started yanking them out one by one, teeth snapping, paws digging furiously. Mikey cheered him on until Sarah stepped in. "Let him flag it," she said, her voice tight as a bowstring. "They're showing us exactly what they think they own." "Feels like painting a bullseye on the place," I muttered. "Good," Sarah said. "Let him aim." By then, the tension was in our bones. Every creak of the porch made us twitch. Every truck that slowed near the gate made my hand drift toward the crowbar. Every night, Buster sat by the window, growling low at the dark. The nails were the final straw. Buster found them first, yelping mid-run, hopping back on 3 legs, his paw bleeding from a tiny, perfect puncture wound. Mikey spotted them next, scattered like seeds across the north field. I dropped to the ground so fast my knees screamed, pulled Buster into my lap, brushing the grass aside, inspecting his paws. Mikey knelt beside me, breathing fast, trying not to cry. He failed. Silent tears streaked down his dusty cheeks as he picked nails out of the dirt one by one. Buster licked his hand. I didn't say anything, didn't need to. The ranch was dead silent around us. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Sarah found us there, sitting in a circle of sabotage. She didn't say anything either, just dropped to her knees and pressed her forehead against Buster's flank like a prayer. The bleeding wasn't bad, a clean slice, washable. But it wasn't the cut that mattered. It was what it meant. They didn't care who got hurt, man, woman, kid, dog, didn't matter, as long as we bled enough to break. And worse, it worked. Not on me, not right away, but in the way Marky stopped smiling, in the way Sarah locked every door 3 times at night, in the way Buster never slept all the way anymore, one ear always cocked for trouble. We started sleeping in shifts. Buster patrolled with whoever was awake. I'd find Sarah sometimes standing at the window long after her shift, watching the fields like a soldier too wired to stand down. We thought the worst was over. We were wrong, because 3 nights later, walking the back fence with Buster at my side and a shotgun slung over my shoulder, I saw him. At first, just a shadow. Then a man, big hood up, moving slow and careful, carrying something long and metal over one shoulder. Buster froze, a growl rumbling up deep and low. I raised the shotgun halfway, flashlight beam swinging wide, caught a glint of something shiny, heavy, too big to be a tool. The man turned only for a second, but long enough. Long enough to see the face. Long enough to know he wasn't a stranger. He was one of ours, someone from town, someone we trusted. And worse, he wasn't there to mark fields. He was carrying a gas can. They say betrayal hurts more when it comes from someone you trusted. Turns out they were right. When I saw Kevin by the fence that night, gas can slung casual over his shoulder like it was just another Sunday chore, something inside me cracked clean down the middle. Not a big explosion, just a slow, steady break, like a tree splitting in a quiet forest, no one there to hear it fall. Because Kevin wasn't just a neighbor. Kevin was family, the unofficial kind. He helped Marky build his first treehouse, brought over a case of cheap beer and 2 left feet for every 4th of July barbecue, taught Buster that stupid trick where he pretended to faint when someone said bang. Kevin had been there, and now he was here, lighting the match. I slammed the front door open so hard it rattled in the frame. Buster barreled in first, barking low and fierce. Sarah spun from the sink, eyes wide, shotgun already half raised. Mikey skidded into the hallway, socks sliding on the floorboards. "It's Kevin," I said, chest heaving. "It's Kevin. He's with them." Mikey's face crumpled, pure shock, pure disbelief. Sarah didn't move, didn't speak, just stared at me with this horrible, slow-dawning realization, the kind that roots itself so deep you can't even dig it out. We didn't sleep that night, didn't even pretend to try. Instead, we gathered around the kitchen table, Buster circling like a restless spirit, Mikey picking at a splinter in the tabletop until his thumb bled. We talked, we schemed, we fought a little. Mostly, we sat there drowning in the ugly truth. If Kevin turned, others could too. We weren't surrounded by neighbors anymore. We were surrounded by enemies with familiar faces. Sarah was the one who snapped us out of it. "Followed the paperwork," she said, voice clipped, sharp enough to shave wood. "Write the paperwork, the boring stuff, the real battlefield." Next morning, I drove into town, didn't take the main road, didn't want eyes on me, took the old trails, dirt ruts so bad my teeth clacked together, parking half hidden behind. Approached the courthouse like a criminal casing a joint. Funny, really. Spent years fighting to defend laws, now sneaking around to survive them. The public records office smelled like dust and broken dreams. Flickering fluorescents buzzed overhead. No guards, no HOA goons, just me and a battered scanner that beeped so loud every time it worked I wanted to smash it with my fist. At first, nothing. Old farm disputes, water rights arguments, citations for noise complaints dating back to 1992. I almost quit, almost threw the scanner at the wall and walked out. Then I found it. A file tucked way too neatly under community redevelopment proposals, stamped, signed, backdated 6 months, filed under a shell company, Merit Preservation Society. But the money, the name on the transfer authorization, was all Franklin. Franklin Development Group. Franklin, An old ghost from my military days, the guy who made millions rebuilding things he helped destroy. The same Franklin who once told me, dead serious, never waste a good disaster. People are easier to move when they're scared. My stomach flipped. Buster's injured paw, Mikey's haunted eyes, Sarah's exhaustion, the fire, the sabotage, the eviction notice, the flags. It wasn't about zoning, it was about leverage. It was about stripping us down until we either walked away or signed away everything we built, everything Buster stood for, everything we fought to heal. I grabbed every file I could carry, stuffed them into my jacket like a man stealing fire, and ran. When I got home, Sarah and Mikey were waiting. Sarah had 2 cups of coffee and an open first aid kit on the table, like she was ready for whatever version of me came back. Mikey sat stiff-backed, hands locked between his knees. Buster limped over, pressed his head against my thigh. I dropped the files onto the table. The sound echoed, a final hammer blow. Sarah read first, her lips moving silently, scanning faster and faster. Mikey hovered behind her, fists tightening with every page turned. "They don't want the land," Sarah said, her voice tight. "They want the dogs, the training, the program." Mikey's face twisted, shock, betrayal, fury, all crashing at once. "They want to steal Buster." His voice cracked on Buster's name. Buster whined low, sensing the storm brewing. I looked around at my family, at the broken old kitchen, at the battered fields outside, at the lives we rebuilt from nothing, and I made a decision. "They want a war," I said. "They got one." Sarah smiled, grim, tired, but real. Mikey punched the air like a kid getting picked for the final play. Buster barked once, loud enough to shake the windows. Because it was never about us. It was about the fight we didn't even know we were fighting until now. And if Franklin thought we were going to roll over, he hadn't been paying attention. There's a point in every war where you stop swinging and start thinking. Not about winning, not about pride, about survival. About whether the next punch you throw is worth the pain that'll come with it. I stood at the kitchen table, staring down at the battered files and photos we dragged home like wounded soldiers. Outside, the wind was snapping through the fields, snapping the shredded remnants of the old American flag that used to hang over the barn. The flag was barely hanging on. So were we. Buster dozed by the window, his bad paw twitching every few seconds like he was chasing nightmares. Mikey paced from the front door to the counter and back, grinding a path into the floorboards. Sarah stared at the coffee pot like it owed her answers. Nobody spoke, nobody moved. It felt like breathing too loud might tip us over the edge. "We can fight," Mikey said again. "We have to. It's not even a question." He slammed his palm flat on the table, rattling the stack of stolen paperwork. Buster growled softly, not angry, just unsettled. I could relate. Sarah lifted her gaze, tired, red-rimmed, not broken, but bending more than I'd ever seen her. "Mikey," she started, soft, like the words might crack on the way out. "No," he snapped. "We can't just let them do this. We can't." I raised a hand, not to stop him, but to calm the crackle of anger in the room. "We stay. We fight." "Yeah, sure, but what happens when they stop pretending?" I let the question hang, let the cold crawl up from the floorboards and sink into our bones. Sarah pushed herself off the counter, wrapped her arms around herself, paced slow, like wading through deep water. When she spoke, it wasn't a suggestion anymore, it was a plea. "We could leave tonight, before they bring the next fire." Mikey flinched like she punched him. Buster's ears flattened against his head. I opened my mouth, closed it, because part of me wanted it bad. Just walk away. Find a place with no flags, no lawsuits, no fake zoning boards or torches in the night. A place where Mikey could ride dirt bikes and Buster could chase squirrels and Sarah could hang up new curtains instead of boarding up broken windows. It'd be easy, safe, cowardly, and maybe smart. I looked around at the battered farmhouse, at the cracked sink, at the busted boots lined up by the door. Mikey's clenched fists tightened at Sarah's shaking shoulders. If we ran, It wouldn't just be leaving a house, it'd be leaving a piece of ourselves in the dirt. You think they'll stop if we leave? I asked, my voice low. You think people like Franklin just let you walk away clean? Sarah's jaw tightened. Maybe not, she whispered. No maybe about it, I said. We leave now, they win. They take Buster, they take the program, they take our name and drag it through every gutter they can find. Mikey swallowed hard, eyes burning. I'd rather go down swinging, he said, his voice breaking halfway through. Buster whimpered in his sleep, a soft, broken noise, like even he knew the crossroads we stood at. I stepped toward Sarah, took her hand. It was cold, shaking, but when our fingers laced together, she squeezed back hard. I'm scared, she said. Not a confession, just a fact, a truth hanging between us like smoke. Me too, I said. The kitchen was so quiet you could hear the house groaning with the wind, old wood, old wounds, old dreams still standing, still here. But we stay, I said. We fight, Mikey echoed. We fight smart, Sarah said, her voice gaining iron again. We didn't need a blood oath, didn't need a flag to salute or a song to sing. We were family. That was enough. That night, we set to work. Mikey rigged the gate with an old tripwire alarm Buster had helped him build 2 summers ago. Sarah pulled every can of food, every jug of water, every box of supplies into a central spot, like she was prepping for a siege. I reinforced the back doors with scrap metal from the barn ruins. We posted shifts, 2 awake at all times, but Buster refused to rest, limped along the patrols like a tiny, determined general, barking orders. We took down every single survey flag we found, ripped them from the ground like pulling thorns out of a wound, set them in a giant heap in the center of the drive, lit them. Watched the flames eat those neon lights until nothing but black smoke and stubborn ash remained. Mikey danced around the fire like a man possessed. Sarah smiled for the first time in days, a real smile. Buster sat regal and proud, chest puffed out like he'd personally chased the whole HOA into the next county. You hear that, Franklin? I muttered under my breath. We're still here. The wind caught the smoke, carried it straight into the night, straight into whatever eyes were still watching from the dark. We weren't done bleeding, not yet, but we were done hiding. Let him come. Let him try. Because survival's easy when it's just about saving your own skin. But standing your ground for something bigger than yourself, that's the kind of thing that carves your name into the dirt forever, and we were ready to carve. For you, a free like is easy. But for me, it is the greatest support and encouragement. For this video, can you give me 1 like and 1 subscription? Thank you very much. When you back a good dog into a corner, they do 2 things. First, they warn you. Second, they take a piece of you you're not getting back. That night, as the last ashes of the flag bonfire blew across the dirt like ghosts, we stopped waiting. We stopped hoping someone would save us. We decided to become something they'd regret ever cornering. Sarah called it Operation Bite Back. Mikey wanted Operation Bring the Pain. I suggested Operation You Started It, Karen, but got voted down 2-1. Buster abstained. Democracy in action. First target, the surveyors. We didn't just remove their flags, we turned the whole Northfield into a minefield of chaos. Mikey and I rigged up tripwire traps with fishing line and cowbells hidden under brush, tied old rubber snakes to pop out of burrows when triggered, hung stink bombs in trees, not homemade either, real army surplus grade. The kind that can clear a barracks. Buster supervised, occasionally stealing a rubber snake to kill it personally. First morning after, 1 poor compliance guy in Dockers and shiny loafers took 2 steps into the field, tripped a line, and got pelted with stink bombs and fake snakes. He screamed so loud birds evacuated 3 counties over. Sarah caught it on camera. She laughed so hard she snorted coffee out her nose. Mikey nearly fell off the porch. Buster barked approval like he'd just watched a fireworks show. Small wins, tiny cracks. But you build a dam 1 crack at a time. Next move, the clipboard cavalry. We rigged air horns under the gravel drive, spring-loaded, wired to pressure plates hidden just under the dirt. First guy who tried to stroll up with a compliance notice, blam, air horn right at ankle level. He jumped 5 feet backwards, tripped over his own clipboard, and ate dirt. Buster barked so hard he fell over. I'm not saying I replayed the security footage 10 times that night, but okay, I replayed it 20. After 2 days, the HOA patrol stopped coming at all. The driveway looked abandoned, like a ghost ranch. Exactly what we wanted them to think. We knew Franklin wasn't giving up, we just didn't know how hard he was about to hit. 3 nights into our campaign, around 1:12 a.m., Buster stiffened by the back door, low growl, no bark. The serious kind of alert that made every hair on your neck stand straight up. Mikey and I grabbed the floodlights and crowbars. Sarah slung the shotgun over her shoulder like she'd been born with it. Kevin was there. No gas can, no backup, just him standing outside the fence, hands up, empty, shivering like a dog left out in the rain. Buster lunged. It took everything I had to snap the leash back in time. Kevin flinched, eyes wide, guilt pouring off him in waves. I need to talk, he rasped. Talk fast, I said, not lowering the crowbar. Sarah stayed half-shadowed in the doorway, gun level, just enough to make the point. Mikey looked ready to charge, but he growled low and constant, vibrating through the leash. Kevin's voice cracked. I didn't know it would get this bad. Franklin. He's bringing in professionals? Contractors. Guys who don't ask questions. Sounds like your kind of crowd, I said, my voice ice. He flinched hard. Not anymore. He dropped a folded paper into the dirt. Coordinates. Times. Entry points. He gave it all up. Maybe guilt finally outweighed fear. Maybe he realized what kind of nightmare he helped unleash. Maybe he just didn't want to be caught standing on the wrong side when the smoke cleared. I didn't care. I wasn't forgiving him, I was using him. Buster bared his teeth as Kevin backed away into the dark without another word. Mikey muttered something under his breath I didn't catch. Sarah just watched him go, her face unreadable. We had 48 hours before Franklin's cleanup crew arrived. 2 days to turn this place from a ranch into a war zone. We got to work. I dug the old chest out of the attic, the one I hadn't touched in 15 years. Mikey stared when I cracked it open. Signal jammers, camouflage netting, homemade flashbangs stitched together with chewing gum and desperation. The old training kicked in, muscle memory sliding back into place like it never left. Sarah took charge of the supplies, stockpiling food, water, dog gear, first aid. Mikey and Buster rigged silent alarms along every fence line, old tin cans, tripwires, motion detectors cannibalized from junkyard scraps. We set up choke points, narrow zones near the barn ruins where anyone approaching would have to funnel, set traps there, caltrops hidden under dry leaves, blinding flares wired to hidden switches. Sarah found the old CB radio in the barn's rubble, patched it into the house wiring. If the cell service got jammed or the power cut, we still had comms. Every dog was assigned a human, every human knew their fallback points, every door was fortified, every escape route mapped and memorized. Buster refused to leave Mikey's side, limp or no limp, his bandaged paw tapped steady beats against the floorboards as they patrolled. At sunset the next day, we stood on the porch, watching the last light burn across the fields, listening to the heavy silence, feeling the tension coil tighter and tighter inside our chests. We ready? Mikey asked, his voice steady. Never been readier, Sarah said, slinging the shotgun onto her shoulder. I looked at them, at the broken house, the battered fields, the dogs pacing restless behind the fences, the life we built from splinters. They wanted a fight, I said. Buster barked once. Mikey grinned. Sarah nodded. Let's give them one. The night started wrong. Wrong like a bad smell under fresh paint, wrong like the hair on your arm standing up before you even hear the knock. The crickets stopped first, the dog shifted uneasy, the wind died, and somewhere out there past the tree line, the dark started watching back. We were ready as anyone can be to defend everything they love with duct tape, worn boots, and the last shreds of stubbornness holding you upright. Buster paced in tight circles at Mikey's feet, low whining under his breath. Sarah double-checked the shells in the shotgun. I tightened the grip on my crowbar until my knuckles cracked. "Last chance to back out," I joked, my voice rough. Mikey grinned, wild, fierce. "Not a chance." Sarah just nodded, tight and small, her eyes hard. I looked around one more time at the battered porch, the broken fields, the scorched barn ruins, the flickering security lights we patched together with prayer and extension cords. Our home. Our line in the dirt. Then the radio crackled once, twice, then died. Signal jammed. Game on. Buster's growl rolled up from deep in his chest, not a bark, not a warning, a promise. Movement at the north fence. Figures, 3 maybe 4, low, fast, professional, moving in patterns that made my skin crawl. I let them get close, close enough to think they had us. Then Mikey hit the first trap. Crack. Flare up. The yard exploded in red light. Buster lunged forward, barking so hard it shook the porch. Mikey whooped like he was riding a roller coaster. I charged, feet slipping on the wet grass, crowbar swinging hard. First guy took it to the ribs, folded like a bad card hand. The other scattered straight into the net trap Sarah and I rigged from old hay wire and fishing nets. They went down screaming, tangled like fish in a barrel. I didn't waste time, dropped the crowbar onto the nearest guy's helmet with a satisfying crunch. Buster tore across the yard, intercepting another runner, latching onto his backpack and dragging him down like a wolf felling a deer. Sarah's shotgun barked twice from the south line, sharp, precise, her silhouette solid and unshakable against the chaos. More figures spilled through the gaps. Mikey slammed another tripwire. Light and sound so fierce my ears rang and my vision widened out. I dropped to a knee, swinging blind, felt the crowbar connect with something soft and human. Hands grabbed at me. Boots stumbled around me, breathing heavy and fast, desperate, mine and theirs. One giant mess of panic and rage. Flashlights cut crazy patterns across the yard. Shouts, orders, grunts, pain. Somewhere behind me, Mikey screamed, for Buster. And then there was a wet smack as he tackled someone twice his size straight into the mud. Buster snarled, deep, endless fighting like a demon, even with a limp, standing over Mikey as fists and boots flew. Sarah reloaded like a machine, not fast, efficient. Click, click, boom. Every shell measured and placed, every shot making space. They were good, but we were desperate, and desperate beats polished every time. I took a hit, hard side of the ribs, felt something crack. Didn't matter. Kept swinging. Crowbar sticky with blood, mine, theirs, didn't care. Buster dragged the man away from Mikey, teeth sunk deep in the back of his vest, tossed him like a rag doll, snarled over Mikey's prone form until Mikey hauled himself up, panting and laughing at the same time. Sarah slipped, reloading too fast, nearly dropped the shotgun. One of the attackers lunged too late. Buster slammed into his knees, tripping him midair like a linebacker. Every second stretched, every breath fought for. By the time the second flare lit the sky, green this time, the attackers were breaking, running. First slow, then full sprint, back over the fences, into the woods, gone. We didn't chase, didn't need to. The message was sent, clear, permanent. Mikey dropped onto his back, laughing brokenly. Buster flopped beside him, licking his face, tail thumping weakly. Sarah staggered over to the porch, slid down the wall, face in her hands. I stood there for a long minute, just breathing, feeling every scrape, every bruise, every beat of my own stubborn, battered heart. We did it. We held. The ranch was wrecked, the yard looked like a war zone, half the traps were sprung, the fence was torn up, the power was shot, but it was still ours. When the sun cracked over the fields, thin and gold and soft, Buster curled tighter against Mikey's side, letting out a soft huff of contentment. I sat down on the steps, crowbar across my knees, Buster's steady breathing at my side, Mikey's quiet laughter drifting up to me, Sarah's silhouette against the pale light, shotgun laid across her lap like a sleeping lion. And for the first time in a long, long time, I let myself believe it. We might be bloodied, bruised, exhausted, but we weren't broken. We were still standing, still fighting, still us, and no one was ever going to take that away again. Sunrise didn't look like a victory, it looked like work. Golden light slipping over shattered fences, survey flags torn and trampled under muddy boots, smoke coiling low from the wreckage of the bonfire like a ghost still lingering. The dogs moved stiffly, sore, limping, but alive. Mikey moved the same way. Buster too. All of us stitched together by stubbornness and coffee fumes. Sarah sipped from a chipped mug, steam curling around her tired smile. Mikey sat in the dirt, Buster's massive head resting heavy in his lap. Every so often, Buster twitched, chasing something in his sleep. Mikey just grinned and scratched behind his ears. Me? I sat on the porch steps, crowbar across my knees like an old soldier's saber, body bruised, heart bruised worse, but beating still. Here. Still fighting. We should call the sheriff, Mikey muttered, voice rough. Maybe after another cup, Sarah said, deadpan. None of us moved because for the first time in what felt like forever, the quiet wasn't a threat, it was a gift. Later, we picked ourselves up, started the long, slow work of piecing the ranch back together. We repaired what we could, patched fences, rewired lights, rebuilt the gate, pulled bent nails with our bare hands and hammered them back straight. Neighbors drifted in, some just checking, pretending they weren't bringing casseroles or spare parts or old barn lumber. Some stayed longer, helped fix sagging roof lines, shore up fence posts, patch bullet holes in the water tanks without asking questions. Not everyone came. Some looked the other way when we drove into town. Some still thought we brought the trouble here. Let them. We weren't doing this for them. The sheriff made a half-hearted investigation, wrote up a few reports, filed a few things in cabinets no one would ever open again. We nodded politely, didn't waste breath hoping for more, because we knew some battles you win by surviving, some battles you win by outlasting, some battles you win by simply refusing to leave. The ranch healed slow. Buster too. He favored his injured paw for a while, but it didn't slow him down much. If anything, it made him smarter, more cautious, more dangerous in the best ways. Mikey taught him new tricks. Play possum became a crowd favorite. Buster would roll onto his side, tongue lolling, legs stiff, dead to the world until Mikey clapped twice, and he'd springing up like a jack-in-the-box. Buster also learned a new command, guard the future. And somehow, he understood. Every time Mikey led the new dogs through their drills, Buster sat by the gate, eyes sharp, tail wagging slow and steady, a sentry, a mentor, a survivor teaching the next generation how to stand tall. Sarah worked magic behind the scenes, turned the ranch into a non-profit, filed paperwork until her eyes crossed, fought bureaucrats with the same stubborn grit she fought the attackers, secured grants, protected the land legally. Built something bigger than just family. Mikey grew up fast, took charge of training, took pride in the younger dogs' successes, took pride in the ranch itself, in us, in what we built with blood and sweat and bone. Some nights, we still sat on the porch, Buster stretched across our feet like a living shield, Mikey sprawled on the steps tossing a tennis ball lazily into the twilight, Sarah sipping coffee that somehow, against all odds, kept getting worse. We didn't talk about Franklin, not anymore. He wasn't part of this place, never was, never would be. Instead, we talked about new training courses, new dogs, new barns, new dreams, dreams we dared to have because we stayed, because we fought, because when the world came to tear us down, we dug in deeper. The scars didn't vanish, the fears didn't either. Some nights, a creak in the floorboard still jolted me awake, heart hammering. Some nights, Buster would patrol the house twice before settling down. But we kept going anyway, together. And every morning, as the sun climbed over the battered hills and Buster chased Mikey across the dew-soaked fields and the dogs barked and the fences creaked and the earth stretched new green fingers skyward, we knew we didn't just survive. We built something they couldn't touch, something stronger than fear, Something louder than silence, something no court, no fire, no contract could ever rip away. Our family. Our home. Our future. Buster sprinted across the field, ears pinned back, mouth wide in a lopsided dog grin, Mikey laughing breathlessly behind him. I leaned back in my chair, crowbar still propped against the porch, coffee steaming in my battered mug, sun warming the scarred earth. "You think you can break us?" I muttered, smiling to myself. "Buster thinks otherwise."